You think I want to go to the stars? I don't even like to fly. I take trains. I built this ship so that I could retire to some tropical island filled with naked women. That's Zefram Cochrane. That's his vision.
Perhaps I could use this as an excuse to go to those far-off planets with little polka-dotted people if necessary, and be able to talk about love, war, nature, God, sex, all those things that go to make up the excitement of the human condition.
I'm Captain James Kirk. Spock.
Your move, Captain. Jim Kirk of the Enterprise.
What's going on? I'm James Kirk. These people are my friend and my shipmate. Leave my crew alone.
Out of the question.
How about that? James Kirk.
It fits like a glove, Captain.
Oh, the bonehead ideas, gentlemen. I'm Captain James Kirk. Get out of my chair. Get out of it now.
My greetings and felicitations, Captain. So good of you and your officers to, drop in. Absolutely smashing.
Jill on True, everyone, and welcome to Humanist Trek. It's a Star Trek podcast about the humanism in Star Trek. I'm Sarah Ray.
And I'm Allie Ashmead.
And you're about to head out on an adventure.
A little bit. I think when this episode comes out, I'll be 4 days away from packing to go to South Korea for 8 days, I think. 8 or 9 days. So yeah.
Interesting. What takes you to South Korea?
So I'm taking Taekwondo. I've been taking it for a year, and I'm currently a purple belt. And our Taekwondo school is organizing a trip. It's like a school trip, you know.
No
and
shit.
Go with a bunch of people. No, yeah, it's so we're going with a bunch of people to all over South Korea. We're gonna stay in different hotels. We're gonna hopefully practice Taekwondo in some historic Taekwondo places. And just basically tour all over. We're actually going to go to the DMZ, which is that area between North Korea and South Korea. And so we'll get to do that and just some really cool stuff. And I need a vacation. I'm not sure. I like traveling alone, so I'm not sure how traveling with a group of people is going to go over with me.
Right.
But it should be fun. I'll be in a different country, so I'm open to anything. So I'm excited.
Yeah, it sounds fun. Well, we're right in the middle of Pride Month, and so I was asked by the Jefferson County Humanists to be on a panel this weekend. So I'm going to be out at the Secular Hub in Denver doing that.
Cool.
Talking about LGBTQ stuff.
Look at you doing good stuff, and here I am going on a vacation. That's awesome.
So that'll be fun. Get to meet all of those people who hang out at the hub, because that's a big deal here. And not very many atheist humanist groups across the country have physical spaces. You know, that's like the mecca of atheism or humanism. Yeah. When you get your own building, you've made it.
Which I think is awesome for Denver. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. So they're one of the few. So it'd be cool to go and hang out with all of those people. If you're in the area, drop by. All right. Let's transform this conversation into a discussion of Star Trek, the original series, Season 2, Episode 9, Metamorphosis.
Sir, contact with an object. It's moving toward us.
No visual contact yet.
Deflectors, full intensity.
Mr. Sulu, yes, Captain. Anything on your scanners?
It's coming at light speed.
Collision course. Visual contact.
Anything, over?
All wavelengths dominated by ionization effects, sir.
All engines full stop.
This episode opens on a space shot of the Galileo Shuttlecraft. Kirk and Spock are up front making course changes, and McCoy is in the back with a very 60s looking woman in a green shift dress and a headscarf, and they're passing coffees around because again
we can't mention OSHA, but
right.
Yeah, so she's pouring coffee for Kirk and McCoy.
Kirk asks how the woman is. No change. And she overhears this and throws some shade at Starfleet. And I noticed in this episode that they're all saying the Starfleet instead of Starfleet.
I didn't notice that.
Really? They still, what are we, mid-season 2, and they still haven't locked down the branding.
Yes, but at the same time, this episode, if I remember correctly, was actually recorded as number 2 in season 2. So I think we still have some episodes that are still played out of order. So this would actually
okay,
be
that's possible. Yeah.
episode 2, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, it is weird. I didn't notice it, but it is weird that they're saying the Starfleet.
Mm-hmm. So apparently this woman is Commissioner Nancy Hedford, and she was sent to Epsilon Canaris 3 to prevent a war. But she contracted a billions-to-one disease called Securo's disease, and she's annoyed that Starfleet didn't inoculate her prior to the mission. So now they're headed back to the Enterprise to get her healed up and back to the planet to prevent that war.
It's an extremely rare, though, and life-threatening disease. And I can see why she'd be pissed because McCoy said it was a 1,000,000,000 chance that she would get it, and she got it.
Which is why we take the vaccine, friends. Like she's right. Why didn't I get a vaccine for this? She's absolutely right. Suddenly, Spock's got a bogey dead ahead, and they drop the center window and see a glowing, flashing thing headed toward them at warp speed. Kirk tries to maneuver to the side, but it follows. Spock says, vaguely like a cloud of ionized hydrogen, but with strong erratic electrical impulses. And the shuttlecraft is overtaken by this glowy cloud, and the lights start flickering, and we hear electrical noises.
They're being pulled on a different course towards the Gamma Canaris region.
And Kirk's like, well, at the moment, we're helpless. You might as well sit back and enjoy the ride. Back from the theme, we get some establishing shots. It looks like the Galileo is landed on a kind of a rocky planet or something, and I wasn't sure if this was supposed to be inside this glowy cloud thing where they ended up, or was this where they were ended up being pulled by the glowy cloud thing? It wasn't clear.
They said it was now I don't know what a planetoid is, but I'm guessing it's some kind of asteroid type planet that's not quite a planet, but they called it a planetoid.
Isn't that the shade they did with Pluto? Pluto was a planet when we were kids. Pluto was a planet, and then they downgraded it to a planetoid, I think.
I don't know. I thought they said, it's a moon or it's not a planet. I don't know what they said it was.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I think it's now back to being a planet. I can't remember.
Make up your minds.
I know science. Jeez. But apparently this planetoid is made with iron and nickel, and it has an oxygen nitrogen atmosphere and what a coincidence, standard gravity. So it's suitable for human life, so they can actually get out and breathe, but they still can't contact the Enterprise.
I really like the look of this planet this week too. It's purples and pinks and greens. They were very vibrant. And whether that was thanks to the remastering process or what, I don't know, but I really liked it.
Yeah, and the rocks were orangey red, kind of to just note the iron,
right?
In the soil. It was a really cool set, actually.
So KSM are going to set off to do some tricordering and leave the commissioner behind, and she is not too happy about that. I did want to mention also the door sequence here. I don't remember seeing the shuttle doors open like this, but it looks really good. The practical effect was really nice.
They fold out? Yeah,
the way that the two panels pull back and slide over, and then the bottom panel went down. It was just very smooth. I don't know how it was constructed, but it was really smooth. I liked it.
And this is the Galileo again. The shuttle is the Galileo. And why was I thinking that it was destroyed in the Galileo 7? But maybe they did take off. No, you're right.
Yeah, they did take off. Yeah. Spock and Kirk take a look at the shuttle, and Spock says, "This is all quite impossible. Nothing's wrong, yet nothing works." As they're looking at the shuttle, Nancy steps out of the doors, and McCoy is reading the gas cloud Spock picked up in the shuttle, except that it seems to be localized and on the planet nearby. From off-screen, a man yells, "Hello!" And then we see a man in an orange jumpsuit waving and running toward them. There are a bunch of interesting camera angles happening here. At one point, they've got the camera pointing through a hole in the rock, and so you can see this man in the middle ground, and then the crew in the shuttle in the deep background. I loved that. That was awesome. The man approaches and he's like, you are real, right? I'm not imagining you. I've had so many fucking shrooms. I'm seeing all kinds of shit.
And then they're like, yeah, we're real. And he's like, oh, you speak English. So they introduce themselves. You know, it's Kirk and whoever, and they're with the Federation, and he doesn't even know what the Federation is. Mm-hmm. And they're like kind of looking at him thinking, this guy looks familiar. Like, how do we know him? But he doesn't.
He introduces
they don't make the connection.
He introduces himself as Cochrane. He's been marooned here for who knows how long. And I immediately thought, wait, Zefram? Oh. It has to be, right?
And you people, you're all astronauts on some kind of Star Trek.
They should have clicked with him, but because he should be like so revered in the space travel world.
Like Americans knowing Washington. Right. It's just that should be in the consciousness. He outs himself as a sexist because he starts drooling all over the commissioner. And I get it. This is like 1960s men away at war become uncontrollably horny because they've been away from women for so long or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So take that for what it is.
What did he say? He said it's like a food to a starving man.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, buddy.
But I think there was some awareness there because then it seemed like he realized what he said, and then he was like, "Oh no, all of you, food,
not just her.
It was food to yeah, not just her. No, all of you."
Yeah.
Kirk introduces everyone, and Cochrane identifies Spock as a Vulcan. When they get to the commissioner, he drools some more and then walks over to the shuttle. He's really impressed with the shuttle, and he's like, "Can't get it to go, can you?" Well, forget it. It won't work. McCoy's been taking some scans and report that this man is human. How the hell did he get here? Kirk explains how they ended up on this rock and says there was a force they couldn't identify, but that it's on this planetoid. And he's like, well, I wouldn't know anything about that. Liar.
Mm-hmm. But he just says, yeah, I was marooned here also. Kirk tells Spock to, tell him about their propulsion system. And then so he takes Cochrane off while him and McCoy talk behind their back.
Yeah.
As they always do.
Yep. Yeah, McCoy's like, talks a lot, but he doesn't say much. And Kirk thinks this guy looks familiar. Hedford isn't running a fever yet, but they've got to get underway soon. What else is there to do in the meantime but go visit Cochrane's place? So the group walks up on this kind of futuristic hut-looking building with a few trees planted around it. And Cochrane says he grows vegetables just over the hill. This is the first sign of vegetation we've seen on this planet, isn't it? The rest of it was just rocky.
I think so. It's rock.
Yeah.
It's all around his house.
As they go to step inside, Hedford gets a little woozy, and McCoy grabs her shoulders to stabilize her, but she seems annoyed by that.
But unfortunately, she's now talking about how hot she is, and she looks like she's sweating. So this is the first symptom of the Sakuro disease. So she's starting to go downhill like fast.
Yep. Kirk picks up what looks like an old speedometer or something out of a dashboard. And he's like, where'd you get all the antiques? And Cochrane says, you mean my instruments? I imagine things have changed a lot since I crashed. And Kirk hands the device over to Spock. McCoy tries to soften the situation with Nancy not feeling well by suggesting, well, it was a long hike to get here, and that made you tired. But she's not in any mood to rest. Spock, who has been standing in the doorway, calls to Kirk and McCoy because not far off in the distance is the glowy cloud thing, and it hovers for a bit before disappearing.
So Kirk is kind of like starting to tell Cochrane, okay, you need to tell us what the fuck is going on. So that's when Cochrane talks about, that's the companion. And this is what he calls this glowy creature thing that probably brought the Galileo there.
Cochrane says he didn't crash on the planetoid. His ship was disabled and he was almost dead, and the companion saved him. And Kirk and Spock note that if he was almost dead, he seems to be in perfect health now. Well, apparently, Cochrane was an old man, and the companion rejuvenated him somehow, made him young again. And he doesn't know what it is or how it made him younger, but it does exist, and he can communicate with it.
That's when Kirk decides to ask what his first name is. He says, Zefram. And then I guess a light bulb goes on. Oh, wait, you're the guy that created warp drive. I'm like, hello? So now they know why he seems so familiar. He's like Zefram Cochrane from Alpha Centauri, the inventor of the space warp drive.
The central character of the 1996 motion picture Star Trek First Contact.
Right? The whole reason it could even be a show. But yeah.
Our crew find this whole story to be a little improbable. McCoy says Zefram Cochrane died 150 years ago.
Cochrane explains that like he was 87 years old when he came there, because I think he actually wanted to just go off into space and die.
Yeah.
Lucky for him, he ran into a companion. He was pulled into this planetoid just like they were. And the companion was lonely.
Meanwhile, McCoy is tricordering Nancy, who is feeling like shit but just wants McCoy to leave her the fuck alone. McCoy tells Kirk that the fever is over 100 now and rising. They've only got hours to get back to the Enterprise for treatment. Spock notes that those instruments are from the time period that Cochrane claims. He cannibalized his ship, and anything he needs, the companion provides.
Kirk asks the companion, what the heck are we doing here? Zefram says, yeah, but you're not going to like it. Kirk's like, well, I already don't like it. But Zefram says that you're probably here to keep me company, to keep me from dying from loneliness.
Yeah. Apparently, in an effort to get the entity to release him, he told it he was going to die of loneliness. And rather than release him, they brought the Galileo there instead. Here, have some friends.
Here, I'm going to bring some friends. I'm going to kidnap some friends, basically.
Nancy has overheard this and goes into hysterics. She's like, that's disgusting. We're not animals. And Kirk and McCoy take Nancy over to a bed and lie her down. And McCoy hits her with a hypo. And it's like, calm the fuck down, lady. Kirk asks Spock to figure out some kind of weapon to use against the companion. And for a moment, Spock hesitates and, in his way, verbalizes his discomfort with what seems like a shoot first, ask questions later approach. And Kirk makes it clear that he will do whatever is necessary to get off this planet and get Nancy to the hospital. And if that entity is in the way, well, we'll get it out of our way. Kirk asks Cochrane what would happen if he left this place. And the answer is that he would start aging normally again. Kirk asks if he wants to leave. And he says, believe me, Captain, immortality consists largely of boredom. And asks, what's it like to be out in the galaxy? And Kirk's trying to make sure that Cochrane is going to be on their team here. And he describes this wonderful universe of millions of planets filled with life. Although he does have a kind of colonizer line. We're on 1,000 planets and spreading out.
Mm-hmm.
And damn good and well, those aren't only lifeless planets. Still colonizing. In the end, Cochrane promises he will help them all escape this planet.
Kirk tells Spock to go, hey, go take a look at the Galileo and see what you can do. And so he goes with his scanner and is opening up a panel and looking at it. But while he's leaning over, the companion appears behind him. So he just kind of puts his hand through it. And it's like, oh, cool. But I guess something with his tricorder kind of sparks. It destroys his scanner, and then it sends an electrical spark through the panel that's open on the Galileo, and then that sparks, and then it knocks Spock out cold.
Back inside, McCoy is tending to Nancy, who is getting worse by the minute. Cochrane communicates with the companion non-verbally, and he says he usually gets his message across. And Kirk asks Cochrane to ask the companion if it can cure Nancy.
Why? I mean, I know that Nancy is a priority, but I'm thinking why don't you just ask them to let you go at this point? Yes. Instead of, they should.
Can you help us get our ship going again or whatever?
Right. We don't want to be here.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Outside, Cochrane explains that he just sort of clears his mind and the entity comes. So he walks off into a clearing and closes his eyes. And it's not long before the entity appears and crosses over the clearing, enveloping Cochrane completely. McCoy says it's almost a symbiosis of some kind, some sort of joining, and Kirk agrees it's not exactly like a pet owner speaking to a beloved animal. It's more than that, like love. It's a quick,
I don't know how they
jump.
got that from. Yeah, that was a jump. I don't know how they got that from that.
No.
But unfortunately, Cochrane comes back and he's like, the companion says that it can't help Commissioner Hedford, which is strange because if you can cure old age, surely you can cure
a disease. Right?
Yeah.
Cut back to the shuttle where McCoy comes running up to find Spock on the ground. Spock relates this most fascinating experience where the companion imparted to him a rather quaint, old-fashioned electric shock of respectable voltage. So it attacked Spock, and a large part of its substance is simple electricity. And McCoy's like, I know I keep saying this, but I'm just an old country doctor. You know, I'm not a scientist or a physicist or an electrician, Spock. But am I correct in assuming that anything that generates electricity can be shorted out? Indeed.
Yeah, not a bad hypothesis from the doctor of all people. But.
Right. He never does doctoring well.
No, but it happens to come up with some random things that make sense.
Inside the house, Spock is fiddling with a device and explains that in close proximity to the companion, it will scramble every electrical impulse that the creature could create without fail. But Cochrane isn't so sure about all of this yet. He's got some serious Stockholm syndrome happening here. This entity saved his life, kept him young, took care of him. He says he even has affection for it. So he doesn't want it killed.
Yeah. He says that they've been closed in a way that's hard to explain. And yeah, it's like, what do you do? Something is keeping you from leaving, but still giving you like more than you could ever ask for, like immortality and stuff. So it's a weird conundrum.
Yeah. Ultimately, he says he sees the situation from Kirk's position and offers to go outside and call the companion. On his way to the door, Cochrane says, what was it they used to call it? The Judas goat? So I had to break our prime directive again and look this up because what the fuck?
I should have looked it up too because I'm like, that's probably something I should look up. But
so apparently a Judas goat in stockyards leads sheep to slaughter and then it's spared its life because of the work that it's doing or whatever. So that makes sense, I guess, as Judas led the Romans to Jesus, right? And the use of the Judas goat has fallen out of use now. Like the use of using goats for that purpose has fallen out of use now, which is probably why we've never heard it before.
Yeah.
But again, is this in the 60s? Was this a well-known thing in the individual lexicon? Like I don't understand some of these phrases that they use. Spock says something about not knowing the extent of the entity's power, and Kirk counters like, well, it doesn't know our strength either. So they're evenly matched at this point in Kirk's mind.
But once again, they're forced onto a planet by some entity.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're ready to kill it to escape rather than just fucking asking it to let me go or to find out what do you want with me or reason with it or whatever.
Right.
Grr.
Yeah. How much of that is wagon train to the stars? Shoot first and ask questions later, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what we're still playing. Outside, the companion appears again and moves across the clearing to envelop Cochrane. And as it does, they flip the switch on this device. And we hear some thunderclaps, and Cochrane drops to the ground, and the entity changes from its yellowish color to an angry orange-red and starts coming towards the house. Inside, it blows up Spock's device and throws Kirk and Spock to the floor, rolling around in agony, clutching their throats, as McCoy pleads with the companion, "Stop it! You're killing them!"
The companion is still choking Kirk and Spock out. And then no matter what McCoy says, it doesn't stop until Cochrane eventually comes out of it and he's basically calls off the companion telepathically, I guess. And then this is where McCoy says to Kirk, "You're thinking more like a soldier and not a diplomat." Which, you should have tried communication rather than just shocking the shit out of it and trying to kill it.
McCoy says, "Why not try a carrot instead of a stick? Why not diplomacy first?"
I agree. I swear a lot of episodes would be avoided.
Yeah. They would never have happened if they just called up on the phone and said, "Hey, do you mind if we walk through your yard real quick?"
Yeah.
Another theme that happens here is the recurring theme of, they talk about, Kirk's talking to McCoy about the heavy weight of command. And that theme comes back. He's worried, I've got a ship out there somewhere. I'm responsible for that. At the lives here on the planet I'm responsible for, and one of them is sick and is about to die anyway. So he's putting a ton of this on his shoulders, and McCoy tries to get him to see that it's not all on him,
Yeah. So Kirk comes up with an idea to have Spock somehow rig the universal translator to figure out how they can communicate with the creature. But I mean, they already have a way of communicating with the creature through Cochrane.
Right.
So why not use him? But they decide, to try to use the universal translator somehow.
There's some fun, jokey lines here, too, where Spock's like, this isn't exactly the kind of life form the UT is meant for. And Kirk says, "Well, Spock, the trouble with immortality is that it's boring. Adjusting the translator will give you something to do to keep you from being bored."
Yeah.
But better do it quick. Nancy's condition is continuing to worsen. Back on the Enterprise, Scotty voices a ship's log. The Galileo is way overdue for rendezvous, and they're trying to backtrack its course. On the bridge, they arrive at the shuttle's last known position and do some scanning to try to pick up traces of residual matter, a trail of breadcrumbs to follow. And they find that and follow it for a little bit, but it quickly fades off. And Scotty and Uhura have a nice scene together here. She's looking for more concrete explanations, and Scotty says that, the shuttle was fine until 5 hours from rendezvous. Then something happened. It didn't wreck. There was no debris. There's no trace of expelled internal atmosphere, no residual radioactivity. So something must have taken over, maybe tractor beams. Whatever it was, they dragged the shuttle away, and they're following that course now. And Uhura voices what I was thinking in this moment, which is, if we've lost the trail of breadcrumbs, how do we know continuing in a straight line from that point is correct?
Good point.
They could go anywhere from that point.
It's a big galaxy, she says.
Yeah. Back at Cochrane's home, Spock is fiddling with the UT, and Cochrane has never heard of this before, and I'm not sure. Have we heard them talk about the Universal Translator on the show before?
I don't think so.
I can't remember.
Maybe. I'll have to look it up to see.
Anyway, the modifications are ready, so we go back outside, and Cochrane calls the companion again, and it envelops him again. And Kirk calls to it and says, "We wish to talk to you." And it moves away from Cochrane toward Kirk, and in a feminine, computery voice we hear,
"How can we communicate? My thoughts? You are hearing them? This is interesting."
And Kirk's like, "Feminine, no doubt about it." And Spock replies, "Yes, the matter of gender could change the entire situation." So, remembering, of course,
I don't
that
think so.
Gay people didn't exist in the 60s. Does this companion think of Cochrane as its mate?
Yeah, like a lover of something, and it makes them look at their relationship all differently. But they're so stuck on the whole gender construct, which is, it's typical for that time.
Yeah, for sure. Kirk tries to explain that it's wrong to keep people captive like this, but the companion insists Cochrane needs people of his own kind or he will die. And Kirk's like, one of these people will die if they don't get to the hospital. But the companion is still stuck on the need to provide other humans for her man to play with. And again, Kirk tries to explain, it is the nature of our species to be free, just as it is your nature to stay here. We will cease to exist in captivity. But again, the companion is singularly focused on Cochrane. She says she's stopped their bodies from aging, no harm will come to them, and they will all live happily ever after. And again, classic Spock. Spock's like, And he's always like, this is an incredible opportunity to study this life form. Ask about its mating habits. Ask about its mating habits. I'm super interested in how it fucks.
Yeah, it's so weird to see him excited. He's like, I want to know about its history, its nature, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Kirk's like, this isn't a classroom. This is not the time for this.
Spock's like,
Your Honor, Starfleet was founded to seek out new life. Well, there it sits.
Seriously, though, Spock is, as usual, correct. And think about how Picard would have handled this, right?
Yeah.
He would have taken the time to like get to know and understand the entity better, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think he would have taken the Spock approach.
Yeah, I agree. And how far they've come,
right?
From the shoot first, ask questions later.
Yeah, in a short time. Too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like what, 20 years between the series?
20 years.
Yeah. Kirk tries again. What you offer us is not continuation. It is non-existence. We will cease to exist. Even the man will cease to exist. But the companion still isn't budging. She says their impulses are illogical. The logic is clear. The man must continue. Therefore, you must continue. Simple logic. She vanishes again and everybody goes back into the house. Cochrane lingers at the door for a few seconds against some melancholy music. And Cochrane comes in and asks why they built the UT to have a female voice. And Kirk's like, actually, it wasn't. It just so happens your companion out there is female. And of course, half of humanity has come a long way in our understanding of gender since the 60s. So Kirk says the idea of male and female are universal constants.
McCoy pipes up and does one of his McCoyisms, and he says, a blind man could see it with a cane. He's a lover to her.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of those lines. Cochrane's like, I don't get it. And McCoy's like, you don't, a blind man could see it with a cane. I just don't like those.
Yeah. But it's McCoy.
But
it's McCoy.
And he's like, you're not a pet. You're not a specimen in a cage. You're a lover. And probably a bottom, judging from what we've seen so far.
Oh my. But it's funny that they equate on this show, every male-female interaction just about is always something sexual or more than friendship. And it's crazy to realize how much they made a big deal out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a man and woman meet, they're destined to fuck or...
Right.
You know what I mean? Or marry or
fall in love or whatever.
Fall in love.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
It's stupid.
Ugh. Spock adds that the way she approaches them is different than how she approaches Cochrane. She's soft and gentle with you.
She shocks the shit out and chokes the shit out of the rest of them.
Cochrane is extremely disgusted by this thought. He says, do you know what you're saying? For all these years, I've let something as alien as that crawl around inside me. Into my mind, my feelings. It's been all up in me.
But now it matters, and now you're mad.
The vapors.
I mean, now he's mad.
And now you're mad
because he feels like he's been used. But I mean, it was a symbiotic type of relationship. She was giving him. He was supposed to be dead for 150 years, so he's been there for 150 years.
Yeah, shit.
I mean, granted, it's captivity, but still, now suddenly he's disgusted.
Right. Well, and KSM tried to rationalize all of it, but Cochrane hasn't gone through the stages of grief yet.
Mm-hmm.
He just feels used, which is relatable.
Mm-hmm.
That feeling. Even Spock says your highly emotional reaction is most illogical. Your relationship with the companion has, for 150 years, been emotionally satisfying, eminently practical, and totally harmless. It may have indeed been quite beneficial. And Cochrane's like, is this what the future is like? Men with no notion of decency or morality? And Kirk's like, shit, you've been watching Star Trek, the original series, haven't you? I knew broadcasting our escapades was a bad idea, Spock. Cochrane leaves the house, and Spock calls his reaction a totally parochial attitude. Suddenly, Nancy... What? Oh, parochial? That's like, parochial is the first definition, I think, is having to do with a church, right? Like parochial school. But then also it means to like in a narrow scope.
Yep. Relating to church and then a narrow outlook.
Yeah. Suddenly, Nancy is calling for McCoy from the other room. She's been listening in and can't believe that Cochrane was loved and resents it. She's laboring to speak through the illness, but she's like, she doesn't want to die. She's been good at her job, but she's never been loved.
Oh,
really?
I saw.
She's like,
someone sees an opportunity here.
Exactly. This is the solution we've been waiting for this week's puzzle. Back on the Enterprise, they're still searching for the shuttlecraft. They've come up on an asteroid belt. Sulu reports 7,000 bodies ranging from types A to M. 34% of them have atmospheres of type H to M. So they're going to have to search the hard way, scan for life forms one by one.
Life forms. You tiny little life forms. Just love scanning for life forms.
Back on the planet, Cochrane has called the companion again, and Kirk is there with the UT. And he asks her if she loves the man. She doesn't understand, so Kirk explains. Is he important to you? More important than anything? Is he as though he were part of you? And she's like, oh yes, all of those things. He tries to explain that the man will cease to exist, but the companion takes this literally. So Kirk's like, no, not his body, but his spirit will cease to exist. And he reminds her of the woman inside the house who will most certainly die the other way without treatment. He says, our species can only survive if we have obstacles to overcome. You take away all obstacles. Without them to strengthen us, we will weaken and die. You regard the man only as a toy. You amuse yourself with him. But the companion disagrees. She says she cares for him. He is the center of all things.
But the companion also says that there can never be real love between them because they're too, I guess, physiologically different. But there's more kinds of love than just physical. But this love doesn't suit Cochrane that much other than keeping him alive because he's stuck there. He's lonely and bored.
But Kirk has to set up the end of the episode. So he makes it their difference in preventing their love. And so she's like, so if I were human, then there could be love? And she disappears. I'm like, oh, okay, something's going on. And McCoy's like, what did you hope to gain by that, Jim? What was that all about? And Kirk explains the concept of if you love him, you got to let him go, and hoped she might express her love through the sacrifice of letting him go. And Spock reminds us that she, or it, he says, is not human, so we should not expect her to react like a human. That's a couple of times we've gotten that from Spock too, and I appreciate those.
I was going to say that's a bit of wise talking from mostly sometimes irrational. Sometimes he makes irrational decisions, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, from off screen, we hear a woman's voice say, Zefram Cochrane, and cut to a perfectly healthy Commissioner Nancy Hedford standing in the doorway as the string music crescendos to commercial.
So the companion has decided to sneak into Hedford's room and just basically join with her because she couldn't cure her. But in a way, by joining with her, she's now basically cured and has immortality.
Yeah.
But the sacrifice for the companion is not immortality, but the companion can live as a human.
Right. And experience all of those human things. Growing old and dying together things.
Yeah.
Yes, there's an odd exchange where Spock says, companion, you do not have the power to create life. And Nancy Companion responds, that is for the maker of all things. And I didn't really understand where Spock's statement came from in the first place, let alone...
But I really didn't understand the companions.
Yeah, this God imagery stuff, that didn't make sense to me either.
This is not the only time that they've thrown a sort of, at the end as an afterthought, they've thrown the possibility of a higher being, higher than the entity that we're already dealing with. They've done that before. Is where like at the last minute they've thrown in the God thing, and I wonder again if it's to appease certain viewers. I don't know.
I don't know.
And when she goes to Cochrane, and Cochrane realizes that the companion is joined with Hedford, he kind of just is reluctant at first, and she feels a little bit rejected. And then I think she immediately understands what that loneliness feels like. And she's like, oh, now I understand how horrible that must have felt for you to be that lonely.
Yeah. So she's like, oh shit, this is loneliness? My God, it's absolutely dreadful. Like, how do you bear it? And Cochrane's like, well, usually I masturbate. I can teach you that too.
Oh, stop. But she was in a corporeal form, so she couldn't do it.
Kirk asks Spock to check on the shuttle, but companion Nancy says that everything is functioning properly again. Cochrane asks, you're letting us go? And companion Nancy says, we could do nothing to stop you. You said we would not know love because we were not human. Now we are human. We'll know the change of days. We'll know death. But to touch the hand of man, nothing is as important. And Cochrane tells her that she's very beautiful. And she says part of her understands, but part of her doesn't. But it pleases her.
He wants to feel the earth under her feet. And for some reason, they kind of go off and take a walk.
Yeah, they're just going off into the woods so Cochrane can show her a few things.
Yeah. See if he really wants to stay there.
Right. On the Enterprise, we've got the captain on comms, and we'll be there to pick him up in 57 minutes. And Scotty asks what happened. And Kirk says, that's an interesting story, Scotty. I can't tell you right now because, quite frankly, I don't know how it's going to end. Off on their romantic stroll, Nancy is holding up her scarf and looking through it at Cochrane. And I don't know if you got this, but the way the scarf was patterned, it reminded me of the way that the entity looked in its like gaseous form.
Yep.
So I don't know if that was an intentional thing or not, but it was very interesting.
But as if she had been looking at him through a veil the whole time.
Yeah.
And now can see him clearly because she's now human.
Zefram is doing that excited new boyfriend thing where he's like, I have so much to show you. There's thousands of planets, thousands of races. I can't wait to take you to all of them. But companion Nancy can't go with him. In fact, she can't leave this place for more than a few days before she will cease to exist. Her life emanates from this place. Cochrane doesn't quite understand the motive here. Why, then, did she sacrifice everything to become human? Even if she stays here, she will eventually die. And she explains that she's just happy to enjoy this short time with him, like as equals. Cochrane's like, I can't just fly away and leave you there. But she insists he must be free.
But then suddenly he's in love with her.
Yeah.
And
Stockholm Syndrome.
Yeah. And so he says, fine, I will stay with you and I'll stay behind.
And he kisses her.
And just like that, they're in love.
Scotty is ready for the shuttle to return. KSM are standing outside the house as Cochrane and Nancy return. Cochrane explains that he can't leave her here to die of loneliness. And he loves her. He asks, is that surprising? And Spock comes around the corner like, not coming from a human. You people are all essentially irrational.
But you can't love someone that quick. Like, fall in love.
Mm-hmm.
Except on Star Trek.
Right. Or when you're 13, maybe. Cochrane is happy to live out the rest of his life, age, and die here. He says, that's been happening to men and women for a long time. I've got a feeling it's one of the pleasanter things about being human. Pleasanter? More pleasant? One of the more pleasant things about being human. Yeah. Not to be that person. In the end, Kirk and Cochrane shake hands, and as Kirk goes to leave, Cochrane asks him not to tell anyone about him. And McCoy says, oh, Jim, what about that war on Epsilon Caranus 3 or whatever at the beginning of the episode? We talked about that, remember? Most of you probably forgot about that.
I forgot about the whole purpose for Hedford even going anywhere was that
Right.
she was supposed to stop a war.
Well, the Federation will just have to find another woman to go stop that war.
What does that mean?
How unsatisfied are you with that?
That's terrible last line.
Right?
Like, as if it only takes a woman. I don't understand what that meant.
No.
I don't know.
They could have very easily said, well, the Federation will just have to find someone else, another diplomat, a different commissioner to send to stop that war. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, humanist themes.
Boy, I'm sure glad that's over with.
I'm happy the affair is over.
Me too.
A most annoying, emotional episode.
Yeah, but I learned something today.
When dreams become more important than reality, you give up travel, building, creating.
One jealous god, if all this makes a god.
By sparing your helpless enemy, who surely would have destroyed you, you demonstrated the advanced trait of mercy.
Frankly, I was rather dismayed by your use of the term half-breed. You must admit, it is an unsophisticated expression.
Oh my God. A cage is a cage. It's another one of those, a cage is a cage thing where no matter even if you are claiming you love someone and keeping them and giving them everything they want, the whole theme about like humans, and if we don't grow and we don't do this, we weaken and die, that kind of thing. And yeah, it's captivity, even, if you don't have freedom.
Right. Kirk says it is the nature of our species to be free. We will cease to exist in captivity. Yeah.
Yeah. Lots of different ways that they portray that so far.
I think I mentioned this in the wrong episode, or I don't know. But anyway, this is where I was thinking of the immortality consists largely of boredom. The idea of living forever. It wasn't in putting your brain in a robot body. It was this one. Yeah. No,
same concept though.
I don't want to live forever. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, sometimes your days you wake up and you're like, I'm really tired.
Yes.
I don't know. We already know, we wrap our heads around the fact when we're born that we know we're going to die and that we're limited. It's limited. Right. Now, some people think they're going to live on after they die. But that's not most people. So I don't know.
Anybody die in this episode?
No, not really.
All right.
No mad bars.
Let's get right to business.
Fine, I'm authorized to pay an equitable price. Federation has invested a great deal of money in our training. They're about due for a small return.
Listen, we pay off percentages. We're entitled to a little service for our money, huh?
Is this the way your citizens do business? Their right of petition?
They pay their percentages and the boss takes care of them.
Is there anything else?
There are a lot of great ways to help support the show. One of the free ways to do that is to leave us a review and a rating wherever you listen to Humanist Trek, or maybe even if you don't listen to Humanist Trek there, you can go and give us a rating and review also. One of the best ways to support the show, though, is to give us some of your hard-earned gold-pressed latinum by becoming a patron of the show. We want to thank our founding admirals who continue to support us. Special thanks to Russell, Allie, Peter, and Sarah. Patrons get early access to every episode, merch at various levels. There's a couple of Patreon exclusive episodes that you can't get anywhere else. So head on over to patreon.com/humanisttrek and pledge as little as $3 a month.
I assume you're loitering around here to learn what efficiency rating I plan to give your cadets.
Trainees, to the briefing room. Is that all you gotta say? What about my performance?
Aren't you dead?
I don't believe this was a fair test of my command abilities. There was no way to win.
There's no correct resolution. It's a test of character.
Now, what is that supposed to mean?
I am understandably curious.
May I ask you a question?
Who's been holding up the damn elevator?
Becca is back with us now to give us the answer to last week's Starfleet Academy Cadet Challenge. Remind us our question last week.
A Gold Key Comics comic book was released as the sequel to this episode. What was it titled?
Allie said Batman.
I have no idea. Okay.
How high were you last week?
pretty high.
And Sarah said Metamorphosis 2. Electric Boogaloo. How wrong are we?
So wrong.
Incorrect.
How would we know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The title of this comic book was A Warp in Space.
What? How the fuck would I know that?
I don't know. You're supposed to be a big Trekkie. You don't have all the comic books?
No.
Oh, no. Then maybe if you had the comic books, you would have known.
Warp in space. Okay.
Did anyone have comic books when we were at the Retromania? I don't remember.
Oh, yeah. The guys
they
next
were
to
everywhere.
us had boxes of them.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
All right. Next week, we'll be reviewing Season 2, Episode 10, Journey to Babel. Tensions run high when the Enterprise transports ambassadors to the Babel Conference. And I do not remember anything about this one either. Do you have any?
I don't. It sounds biblical though, but
yeah, it does.
that.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I don't. It doesn't. Nothing comes to mind.
Only because I happen to be looking at the Paramount Plus episode listing. The thumbnail to this episode is like KSM, and they're all in their like dress uniforms in what looks to be like some kind of big conference room with a bunch of delegates. That's it.
Right. And Sarek's in there too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Sarek is in this episode.
Huh.
His dad. Spock's dad.
Papa. All right. What's our question for Journey to Babel?
Jane Wyatt plays Spock's mother in this episode. What was she unaware of about this show until the day she showed up to start filming?
Jane Wyatt. Her name sounds familiar. Was she like in Jane Wyatt? It's one of those Western shows that was on TV, wasn't it? It wasn't
like Gunsmoke
What was that one show?
My God.
Oh my God, Bonanza?
I'm pulling it up here. Hold on.
Bonanza. Was she in Bonanza? She was
gonna
in
pull
one
up
of
her
them.
thing. Or
she was in Father Knows Best.
Jane Wyatt. Who the hell is Jane
Okay.
Wyatt? Maybe I'm thinking of Jane Wyatt.
She was in Saint Elsewhere.
Jane Wyatt.
The Love Boat, Fantasy Island, Happy Days, like one episode appearances here and there.
Okay. Right, I'm thinking of someone. Yeah, I'm thinking of Jane Wyman. All right. Maybe she didn't know it was a space show. Maybe she thought it was a drama.
I think she didn't know they were going to glue shit to her ears.
Yeah.
She's right. She shows up for her call time or whatever, and they're like, sweet, go down to makeup and get your ears on. And she's like, what the fuck do you mean get my ears on?
Right. She's like, this is a space show? I thought it was going to be a drama. I don't know. It could be. I think we'd get a half a point for each of those.
you don't even know what the answer is. How could you?
That sounds right. I mean,
okay.
That's right. She didn't know it was a space show.
I guess you'll have to wait until next week.
Therefore, she didn't know she was going to have ears.
Well, we've locked in our answers. If you'd like to play along, head over to your favorite social media app, unless it's Twitter, and leave us your answer with the hashtag Starfleet Challenge. No cheating, no Googling. We're on the honor system here. And we'll pick out our favorite and maybe read it out on the show. Next week on Humanist Trek, Star Trek The Original Series, Season 2, Episode 10, Journey to Babel.
Live long and prosper.
Kapla!
Humanist Trek is available wherever you replicate your podcasts. Follow us on all the social medias at Humanist Trek. Become a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Trek. Open hailing frequencies to podcast@humanisttrek.com and visit our website, humanisttrek.com. Humanist Trek is a production of Sarah Austin Media.